So I did a video about how trees and plants are alive and that they can communicate and that they can feel and that they're aware of their surroundings and they're aware of us and they communicate with us as well. And someone had mentioned that they had to trim a bush in their garden and they were really concerned about harming it. And there's some times where you literally just have to trim a bush or trim down a tree, because otherwise if it grows too big, it'll end up say growing into the side of a house or something, and basically then it'll end up getting taken out completely, and it's better to actually just trim it down rather than it having to get taken away and killed. So if you do have to trim your garden and you do have to cut back a tree or something, the best thing to do is to just actually speak to them, speak to the nature spirits, speak to the trees, and just tell them what's going on. So say, hey, look, we need to trim you back, explain why, and just say it's because we want you to stay, we don't want you to leave, and so we want to just make sure that everything's good, and so because you're going to continue to grow, you need to just keep getting trimmed back, and it's so that you can stay, and we love having you here and stuff. And if you give them warning and let them know, then it's all good. I've seen a lady who said that she can hear plants. So basically all plants and all of life and nature has its own frequency, and it emits a sound like a song and stuff. And you can hear plants singing and stuff. And I'm sure you guys have seen the videos where people put those little electrode pads on plant leaves and stuff, and you can hear them singing tunes and stuff. So this girl can hear plants, and she said that she was moving house one time and she was moving her plants and she was putting them in the car, and she could hear them screaming because they were scared and they didn't know what was going on. So she just told them, look, you're safe, we're moving house, you're going to be safe, we're just moving house and we're going to a nice place, and you're safe and stuff. And then they stopped screaming and they were happy again. So it's about communication and letting them know. I also, you can do this with animals and insects as well. So this one time I had some ants in the kitchen. It was at my parents' house, and basically my mum had to get this guy in to get rid of them, and I didn't like the fact that we had to kill them, but that was the only way to get rid of these ants. So what I did the night before the guy came, I basically sat down with them. There's basically a trail of ants coming through the kitchen and going into this bottom of this cupboard, and they're going back and forth. So I sat down and I connected to these ants, and I kept saying, look, you need to leave by tomorrow. This guy's coming, he's going to basically get rid of you all, and you're going to get killed, so you need to go and stay out of the house now. This is your warning, I'm just letting you know. And so I spent time meditating and connecting with them and telling them that. And I could half imagine the ants going back to the colony guys, I've had a message from the gods or whatever, we need to go, something bad's going to happen. And the other ants being you're a conspiracy theorist. He's gone mad, he's gone mad. And then next minute the end of the world thing happens. But on a serious note, the next day loads and loads of them were gone. There was probably about 20 ants left that still kept coming back, and unfortunately obviously the guy dealt with them, which is really sad. But but most of them had gone, so they'd listened and they'd heard. And when I say, oh, we've had a message from the gods, what I mean is to the animals, to the insects, we are gods, humans are gods. And so if you think about it in this way, if you see a little fly drowning in a puddle or something, and you save that fly, to that fly, that is that fly thought it was going to die, it was drowning, it had no hope, and then a higher being pulled it and saved it out and saved its whole life. And it's that moment where you feel almost God's had an intervention in your life and intervened, and he saved your life, and it had to be the power of a God, someone higher and bigger and greater, who could help you because you couldn't help yourself. And it was a pretty dire situation. And so again, we are gods to the insects and the animals, so we should start acting like gods. We should start acting like beings that look after them and are here to help them and to be godly towards them and not to harm them and stuff. A last thing about the trees and nature spirits though is trees and plants, they all have angels and fairies that are allocated to them and that live in them and stuff. And so say if you know that there's a forest and it's going to get cut down, what you can do is you can go to that forest and you can go and say, hey guys, there's people planning on cutting you guys down in 2 weeks time, there's nothing I can do, but I just need to let you know. Because when a tree gets cut down, the fairies and the nature spirits that live there, they can't live there anymore. Although I do believe that trees actually still exist on the etheric realm, but I have heard that when trees get cut down, that the spirits of the area kind of have to relocate and stuff, and it's better to let them know so that they can actually relocate and plan ahead, knowing that the forest is going to get cut down. So obviously the trees themselves, they can't exactly move and relocate and do anything, but I do know that trees aren't as attached to their physical form as like humans are and stuff. So trees like aren't going to be crying their eyes out about the fact that if they have to go, they have to go, like their time has come kind of thing. They're so much more tapped into the spiritual world and the ether that I don't believe that they're gonna like, they find it as difficult as we would as humans. Sometimes that stuff just happens, but I've also heard of a story about a tree right next to this woman's house, and she communicated with the trees like on a daily basis and stuff. And there was once a storm and the tree fell, but the tree fell in the opposite way of where the house was. And she was like, the tree was fully leaning towards the house all the time it was growing, and when it fell, it had fallen the opposite way. And she was like, honestly, that tree has moved itself so that it didn't fall on the house. It had done that and actually fully fell the other way so that it didn't harm her in the house and stuff. So like, it's possible that there's so much more going on than we think and know and are aware of. And so I think just the importance of communicating with the spirit world and communicating with the fairies and communicating with each other like more, and animals more and stuff, I just think that that is the future, and that's going to be a really important thing to start doing. So